I recently checked a box off my childhood bucket list. I completed Pokemon Emerald's Pokédex. Despite having a lot of fun doing it, it's not something I would really recommend doing. Completing Emerald's Pokédex is a very impractical task. Impractical is a very intentional word choice, because I know a lot of Pokédex purists out there will say that modern Pokédexes are way too easy to complete, and I completely agree. I completed Sword and Shield's Pokédex in under 50 hours of playtime, and that was done very casually, without completion being my main goal. Well, let's take a look at the requirements necessary to complete Emerald's Pokédex. On one very thorough playthrough of Emerald, you can only obtain around 200 of the 386 Pokemon that existed in the Gen 3 National Dex. In one playthrough, you can only get either Latias or Latios, and can only evolve one Clamperl into either Huntail or Gorbis. Because of this, you technically have to play through the entire game twice to complete the Pokédex. So I ensured I traded over my Latios and Huntail for my previous 40-ish hour incomplete playthrough before I restarted my save, and then I made sure to pick the other Pokemon in my most recent playthrough. But some Gen 3 Pokemon are also completely absent from Emerald's roster. Surskit/Masquerain, Meditite/Medicham, Roselia, Zangoose, and Lunatone are all unobtainable in Emerald. This is only the tip of the iceberg of problems you will run into attempting to complete the Pokédex, however, because it is impossible to trade from Gen 2 to Gen 3, and the lengths to which Game Freak expect you to go to get the previous generations of Pokemon seem very unrealistic to me. In order to get the missing Gen 1 and Gen 2 Pokemon, you will also need Pokemon Fire Red, Pokemon Leaf Green, Pokemon Colosseum, and Pokemon XD. Subsequently, this means you will also need to complete these games, so despite Emerald only showing 90 hours to complete it, that doesn't include the 50-ish hours for my previous playthrough, the 40 hours in Fire Red, 45 in Leaf Green, 39 in XD, and 100-ish hours in Colosseum. It stops keeping track beyond that. In addition to the time commitment, there's a hefty cost associated with it. Assuming you already have a GameCube and 2 Game Boy Advances, according to the cheapest Buy It Now listings on eBay, meaning that these were all in terrible shape with missing labels, bite marks, etc. At the time of this video, you'd have to fork out $85.95 for Emerald, $64.99 for Fire Red, $60 for Leaf Green, $99.99 for XD, $89.95 for Colosseum, $125.95 for the English Colosseum bonus disc, $23.10 for a Japanese copy of Colosseum, and $124.49 for the Japanese Colosseum bonus disc. And if you're like me and you need the link cables, that's another $32.99 and $19.99. This totals up to nearly $730, which tax in my state brings close to $800. But once you have all of this, you have what it takes to complete the National Gen 3 Dex. Between Fire Red and Leaf Green, you can get all the Gen 1 Pokemon, in addition to the exclusive Gen 1 Pokemon that exist in each version of the game. There are also exclusive Gen 2 Pokemon in each version, meaning both need to be completed in order to reach the Sevi Islands and pick up the few exclusives available there. For the majority of Gen 2, you're going to need to play through Colosseum and XD, so you need to complete those games, then purify each Pokemon before you can trade it. That's a lot of time, but that's all fine and dandy. These 2 games will also help you get the 7 Gen 3 Pokemon that were unobtainable in Emerald, so you don't have to also play through Ruby and Sapphire. One of these is a big pain, however, because Surskit requires you to use the Pokespot and has a really low encounter rate. And if you're like me and you don't work on that until post-game, you don't really have anything entertaining to do while you wait for Pokemon to appear at the Pokespot. And it's really, really boring. I ended up giving up and playing through 2-ish hours of Sapphire to find one instead. The big reward at the end of XD is obviously the box art legendary Lugia. Lugia takes a lot of time to purify before you can trade him, because you have to purify all other Pokemon first. But he's nowhere near as big of a pain as the end reward of Colosseum, Ho-Oh. In order to get Ho-Oh, you need to complete Colosseum, purify all Pokemon, then win the Mount Battle vs 100, which pits you against 100 trainers and is pretty time consuming. These trainers have teams that match the level of your highest party member, so some of the earlier trainers who only have basic Pokemon can still be sort of difficult. And as you progress further, trainers start to have legendaries like Kyogre, Groudon, and the Regis. If you lose, you go back to the start. And that's a pretty daunting punishment considering how much of a time commitment it is, and it made the last 20 or so battles really stressful. Luckily at this point, you can trade with your copy of Emerald, so I consolidated a team that I shiny hunted across Fire Red, Emerald, and Ruby, and relied heavily on my shiny Rayquaza named Noodle. It was still fairly difficult, and I nearly lost on several occasions. Trainer 90's Regice was really scary, and I ended up winning with just 3 HP on my last Pokemon. But now you have Ho-Oh. Now that you have all these Pokemon from Colosseum, XD, Fire Red, and Leaf Green, you just need to evolve them. I traded over my EXP shares from Fire Red and Leaf Green, and ran the Elite Four over and over, relying on Noodle again. I'm not sure how long this took me, but it gave me enough time to watch the entirety of Death Note and a couple seasons of The Simpsons, so clearly it was no small time commitment. But now we're really close to finishing the Pokédex. After all this, we're still left with 4 problem Pokemon: Mew, Celebi, Jirachi, and Deoxys. In the US, Jirachi came from the pre-order bonus disc with Pokemon Colosseum, meaning that if you did not pre-order Colosseum, you could not complete the Pokédex. If you did pre-order Colosseum, you can just transfer it to a copy of Ruby or Sapphire, then trade it over to Emerald. Neither games need to have been completed. Because of this, it can theoretically be shiny hunted, so I might go back to that sometime. In Japan, Celebi was the gift included in the Colosseum pre-order disc. Unlike Jirachi, this required you to complete Colosseum and purify all Pokemon. This means you would have to beat Colosseum yet again in a non-native language, and own a Japanese copy of Ruby or Sapphire to trade it to Emerald. Instead of subjecting myself to that torture, I got a completed save from a friend and used that. It still took me a long time to figure it out though, since I cannot read Japanese. It cannot be shiny, but considering you'd have to replay all of Colosseum each time to try for a shiny, perhaps that's for the best. We've come really far along now. You should feel proud that you are now 99.48% done with the National Pokédex. Hooray! And now, you can't progress any further. Go home. Screw you. Hope those 2 missing slots in your Pokédex bring you great emotional trauma for years to come. No, really. The last 2 Pokemon were mystery gifts. I have very fond memories of going to events to download event Pokemon as a kid, but the quality of life in these games suffer from this form of distribution. There's technically no way to complete Emerald's Pokédex today. Unless you happen to be in Atlanta, Minneapolis, or Seattle in October 2004, you never got to catch Deoxys to complete the Pokédex. And if you weren't in Japan summer 2005, you can forget about ever getting Mew. However, thanks to the loyalty of the amazing Pokemon community, a ROM of the distribution cartridge used to distribute the Aurora ticket has been dumped online. It is now possible to download the ROM to a flash card and accept the mystery gift on your copy of Emerald. This feels very close to legitimate to me given the circumstances. So a big thank you to Digix user Deoxys for purchasing the cartridge and dumping it online. As a cool little side note, because it was distributed this way, you can shiny hunt it, so I didn't pass up that opportunity. So now we have 385 out of 386 Pokemon. Unfortunately, a distribution cartridge ROM for Mew has not surfaced online. This seems to be a reoccurring theme for Japanese distribution cartridges, so I had to find some other way to do this, because I didn't come this far just to be missing 1 Pokemon. So I bought a GB operator so that I could connect my game to my PC and add the old C-map to my bag. This way I was able to go to Faraway Island and shiny hunt Mew and 100% my Pokédex. But this left me very dissatisfied. This was a project I spent an insane amount of time on because I wanted to do this completely legitimately, and the fact that I had to technically cheat to get the last Pokemon left a bad taste in my mouth. Instead of feeling accomplished for all that I had done, I felt like I had weaseled out of doing it. But, at the very least, everything else I did will help me with my next project, completing Gen 4's Pokédex.